Hi and welcome to 1-3. Hi and welcome to 2-3 multi-step equations. So today we're going to go over a 5-minute check. We're going to look at mathematical practices, then and now, new vocabulary, some examples, a summary, and another example. All right, let's do this. So while we do the checks, what I want you to do is pause the video and check your work after you have attempted the problem. So for this one, we have z minus 11 equals 15. Pause the video, attempt the problem. When you've attempted the problem, we can now see, okay, we need to get rid of the negative 11. So I'm going to add 11 to both sides of our equal sign. If you need to, draw the dot. The idea is we need to get z by itself. So we bring down z, negative 11, positive 11, cancels out to 0. Bring down our equal sign. We have a positive 15 and a positive 11. So we're going to add those together to get 26. So our answer should be C, 26. All right, go ahead, pause the video, attempt the problem. We have 2.4 plus W equals negative 1.9. Again, we're solving for our variable. So that means we need to get rid of our 2.4. So since it's positive, I use a negative 2.4 or I subtract 2.4. And so these cancel out to 0. I bring down my W. If you need to, draw your line where the equal sign goes. And then we have negative 1.9 minus 2.4, which is the same thing as saying plus. We're adding two negative numbers, so our answer is going to be negative. 9 plus 4 gives us 13. Bring up the 1, carry the decimal. We have 2, 3, 4, so we should have negative 4.3a. Go ahead, pause the video, attempt this problem. We have 28 equals x minus a negative 5. So when we minus a negative 5, we can think of this as a positive 5 because technically the minus is a negative 1. That's how I like to think of it, which tells me I have x, and then negative 1 times a negative 5 gives me a positive 5. So this is how we can simplify the problem. And since I need to get x alone, I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides of my equal sign, bring down my x. My 5's cancel out to 0. I get 28 minus 5 to give me 23, so my answer should be D. All right, for this problem, first we have to write the equation for a number decreased by negative 4 is equal to 15, and then solve the equation. So first we have a number, so they just use the number n, decreased by, so subtracted, and by negative 4 is equal to, and then 15. So it eliminates A, and that eliminates C. So now we're just looking at B and D. So the equations are the same. The only difference is your answer. So when we have n minus a negative 4 equals 15, when I see that minus a negative, that tells me I want n plus 4 equals 15. And so we can think, oh, well, it's 11. So B. All right. For this problem, a farmer planted 35 more acres of corn this year than last year. So if he planted 200 acres of corn this year, how many acres did he plant last year? So I'm going to say T for this year and L for last year. So this year, we know he has 200 acres of corn. Last year, he did 35 more, or this year he did 35 more. So that tells us we're going to do last year plus 35 more. And that's going to give us our total, or this year, which is T. And so we have L plus 35 equals 200. And so we're going to subtract 35 from both sides. And when we look at our problem, it's definitely not A, not B. 35, 5 to get to 10 is going to be D. All right. A plane travels at 380 miles per hour. How many hours does it take for this plane to travel 290 miles if it maintains the same speed? So we're looking at 380 miles per hour. And we're trying to figure out how many hours does it take for this plane to travel 2090 miles. So we're trying to figure out times however many number of hours will we get 290 miles. I should put a pi there. All right. So what this tells me is I'm doing 380 times x equals 2090. So that means I'm dividing by 380. So x equals, because this is a big 1, so x equals, then when we do our math, we should get, let's see if it shows me, 5.5 hours. So if you did this in your calculator, we should have 290, 2000. Yeah, okay. All right, so today we are going to look for and express regularity in repeated reasoning. That's one of the mathematical practices we're doing. Our content standards, that's just teacher jargon. All right, then you solved single step. So we already did single step equations. Now we're going to solve equations with more than one operation. So you did this in 8th grade. We're just reviewing this, and then we're going to introduce something called consecutive integers. So I'm not sure if your teacher covered that last year, but we'll find out. All right, so we have multi-step equation, consecutive integers, number theory. Okay, first step for solving multi-step equations. This is just a 2-step equation. All right, first step, I'm going to subtract my 11 from both sides. And when I do this, I'm going to bring down my 2q. These cancel out to 0. I bring down my equal sign. 3 minus 11 is the same thing as saying 3 plus a negative 11. So if I think, what is the difference between these two? I know that it's going to be 8. And since my 11 is a negative, I have a negative 8. Now, 2 and q, the operation in between here is multiplication. So I'm doing the opposite, which is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. I get a big 1 here, so I just get q equals negative 8 divided by 2 is a negative 4. All right, so now let's look at how they describe it. We start with our original equation, subtract 11, simplify, divide, and simplify. We get q equals negative 4. And now let's look at the next problem. So our first step is we need to get this 12 out of our denominator. In order to do that, we see that this whole thing up here is being divided by 12. So we need to have k equals negative 2. So we're going to have k plus 9 divided by 12 equals negative 2. First thing we need to do is any multiplication or division. So because we're dividing by 12, we're going to multiply both sides by 12. So we should get k plus 9 equals, because we have these two 12s cancel to make 1s. So that's why we get k plus 9. Then we have a negative 2 times a positive 12 gets us a negative 24. Then we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. This cancels to 0, so we just get k equals negative 24 minus 9 is the same thing as negative 24 plus a negative 9. So we get a negative 33. So k equals negative 33. And that's what they got. All right, so now we're going to have you attempt this problem. Pause it, try it. Now that you've tried the problem, we have 6v plus 7 equals -5. The first thing we need to do is divide. Nope. First thing we need to do is get rid of the plus 7. So we subtract 7 from both sides. We bring down our 6v. This cancels out to 0. Equals 2 negatives. We're adding them together. So we get -5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now we divide by 6 on both sides since we are multiplying. So we should get v equals -12 divided by +6 is a -2. Our answer should be A. Let's check it. And that's what they got. Now let's try this one. Go ahead and try it. Pause the video. We get 4j minus a -4, all divided by -6 equals 12. When we see this problem, we should always think that we need to get rid of our divide by 6 because this whole thing up here, all of it's being divided by 6. So we have to multiply by a -6 on both sides. So we get these two cancel out. -4j minus a -4 equals 12 times 6. So 12 times 6 gives us a -72. And don't forget to make this a big plus sign. So instead of subtracting 4, we now need to, or instead of adding 4, we need to subtract 4 from both sides. Bring down our -4j. So now when we do this, it makes a 0. Bring down our equals. We have -72 minus 4. So that just means that we're adding them together. So we have -76. And now because the -4 and the j are being multiplied, we divide by -4 on both sides. So that tells us we're going to get a positive answer. So that eliminates B and D. -4 divided by -4 is a big 1. So we just get j, and now we get 76 divided by 4, which gives us 19. And because we had negative divided by a negative, it's positive. So we should get C for our answer. All right, for the next one, it's going to be a word problem. So we have to think a little bit. Susan had a $10 coupon for the purchase of any item. She bought a coat that was half its original price. After using the coupon, Susan paid $125 for the coat before taxes. What was the original price of the coat? Write an equation for the problem, then solve the equation. So we have a coupon for $10. So that's $10 off. Then she bought a coat that was half its original price. So we're taking half of the coat. So I'm going to put a C for coat. So C equals coat. After using the coupon, Susan paid $125 for the coat before taxes. So that was after the coupon. So we have half the cost of the coat, which is half C, because remember, of equals multiplication. So it's 1/2 times C. And then it says after using the coupon, she paid $125 before tax. So that means we're going to subtract our $10, and that's going to equal $125. Now that we have our equation, we're going to solve it. So we're going to add 10 to both sides. This goes to 0. We still have 1/2 times C equals 125 plus 10 gives us 135. And so now to simplify the 1/2 C, 1/2 C can actually be rewritten as C over 2. So I'm going to rewrite that as C over 2 because then that tells me I'm just multiplying both sides by 2 to get the original price, because that's our goal. We're finding the original price. So we get C equals 135 times 2 if you plug it into a calculator. we get $270 for the cost of our coat. Now that we have our answer, I do want you to write the cost, or we should say the original cost of the coat was $270. That's our answer. Since it's a word problem, we need to give context to our answer. Looks like they did what we did, and they got the same answer. And notice how they wrote the original price of the coat was, just like we did. Okay, so now we're going to try another one. We have 3/4 of the difference of a number and 7. So remember, when we see the difference of, we're doing subtraction, but that tells us we're going to be putting parentheses around this. So we're going to have a number x and 7. And we're taking 3/4 of that, so we're multiplying. And then that's our equal sign, -15. So we have 3/4 of the difference of a number x minus 7, x and 7, is -15. Now we need to figure out what the number is. So we could distribute this, and then we would have a fraction for both of those numbers. Or we could do multiply by the reciprocal, and that's going to eliminate it on this side. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So 4 and 4 make a 1, 3 and 3 make a 1. So 1 times 1 gives me 1. So I have x minus 7 on this side. And now I can look at my other side of the equation and see, okay, I have a -15 and a 3. I can divide the top and the bottom by 3. So this makes a 1. This makes a -5. -5 times a +4 is a -20. Now that we're here, it's a lot more simple. We add 7 to both sides. So we get x equals -13, which is A. So let's see. Yep, we got A. All right, we're going to get into some number theory. That's what this is, number theory. I took a whole class called number theory, and it has a lot to do with remainders of numbers and just understanding how numbers work. So we're going to talk about consecutive integers, consecutive even, and consecutive odd. So we're going to see what the difference is. So notice we all start with a number, and then we add 1 to that number to get our consecutive integers. So consecutive meaning in order. So think of that as being in order. So when we think about that, we're looking at, say, 0, 1, 2. If n is 0, then our next number is n plus 1. So 0 plus 1 gives us 1. N plus 2 is our next one, because we just keep adding. Essentially, we keep adding 1 to our previous number. For the next one, when we're looking at even integers, n plus 2. So notice if we start at 0 and then we add 2, we get 2. We add another 2, we get 4. So we have n plus 4. And then it's going to be the same thing for odd, where 0 is considered an even number. So 0 is even, right? So that's why there's no 0 here, but we have a 1. But between odd and even numbers, we're still going to have a difference of 2 between our numbers, right? If I have a negative, or if I have a 1 and I add 2 to it, I should actually start at, so we have 1, and then my next odd number, 1 plus 2, gives me 3. So I should have 1 and then 3. And then I'm adding 4 to 1, I get 5, right? And then we keep going in this direction. This one is alternating. So I'm not understanding their example, why they would give you that one. They should give you this example right here with the odd numbers. If we went in the opposite direction, we would be subtracting 2. So we would have 1 minus 2 to get -1, and so forth in this direction, okay? All right. Write an equation for the following problem, then solve the equation and answer the problem. So we're going to find 3 consecutive odd integers. We're looking at their sum, and that's going to be 57. So when we talk about 3 consecutive odd integers, remember we always start with n. Odd integers are still n plus 2 for my next one, and then n plus 4 for the one after that. If we go back, so we're looking for n plus 2, n plus 4, because this is my first one, this is my second one, this is my third, because I have 3 consecutive odd integers. And we're looking at the sum of those. So we're going to have n plus 2 plus n plus 4, and we're saying that is 57. So now we simplify it. So these parentheses are not necessary. I could just rewrite this as n plus 2 plus n plus 4 equals 57. These parentheses just tell me what I'm plugging in for each section. So we have n plus n. So we have n plus n plus n. So we have 3n. Then we have a positive 2 and a positive 4. So plus 2 plus 4 is 6 equals 57. And now we can subtract 6 from both sides. These cancel to a 0. I get 3n equals 57 minus 6 gives me 51. And now I can divide by 3 on both sides. And when I do 51 divided by 3, I get 17. So n equals 17. So what that tells me is now n equals 17. N plus 2 equals 19. N plus 4 equals 21. Now let's check that. 17 plus 19 plus 21. If we plug those into our calculator, we should get 57. And we do. So this checks out. We do get 57. Are these all odd? Yes. Are they consecutive? 17, 19, 21? Yes. Do they equal 57? Yes. So our answer is, it's asking us to find 3 consecutive odd integers. So we're going to say our answer is 17, 19, and 21. That is our answer. So let's see how they solve it. Okay, so we let n equal the least odd integer. So that's what we started with. Then we let n plus 2 equal the next greater odd integer. Then we did n plus 4 to equal the greatest of the 3 odd integers. And we know that the sum is 57. That's what we got for our equation. And then we simplify and we solve for n, and we should get 17. Yep, there we go. So this is how we should have answered it. The consecutive odd integers are 17, 19, and 21. Okay. Next, you're going to try this one on your own. Pause the video. Now that you've tried this on your own, find 3 consecutive even integers whose sum is 84. So remember, it's going to start out the same way as odd, where we start with our first one, which is n. Then we have n plus 2, and then we have n plus 4. Okay, so we know that this is our first, second, and third. So now we do n plus 2 plus n plus 4 equals 84. Because we're doing our sum, that means we're adding. 80 is 84 equals 84. So we know we're adding them all together. We're going to simplify. So we have n plus 2 plus n plus 4 equals 84. We have n plus n to get 3n plus 2 plus 4 is 6 equals 84. We subtract 6 from both sides. These cancel to a 0. We get 3n equals, 84 minus 6 gives us 78. Then we do division on both sides by 3. We get n equals 78 divided by 3 gives us 26. So if we look at our answers up here, while C isn't off, these aren't consecutive. Neither are these, so those cancel. These two are consecutive, but it tells us we're starting out with 26. So our answer should be B. So if n is 26, we add 2, we get 28. We add another 2, and we should get 30. So B is our answer.